Welcome back to Nourished Inside Out, the space where growth gets real and self love leads the way. I'm your host, Annetta Walklaw, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you of something powerful. You are worthy, you are enough, and you don't need to wait for permission to love yourself fully. That's exactly why I wrote my book, Blooming with Self Love, to give you the tools, affirmations, and daily mindset shifts to help you stand in your power and own your story. This book isn't just words on a page, it's a movement. So if you're ready to stop shrinking and start showing up for yourself, grab your copy today with the link in the show notes below, and let's walk this self love journey together. Welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. Today I'm here with Professor Martha Burich, and she is a parenting expert. Thank you so much for joining us today, Martha.
Thrilled to be here, Anita.
You have a really unique background of how you have built your life and really built yourself up back from rock bottom. So I really want to talk about what it's like to face setback after setback and still get back on your feet and move forward with like an optimistic mentality and an optimistic attitude. So I'd love to know a little bit more about your story and what led you to become a parenting expert.
Good questions. You know what is when it comes to attitude, we really have a choice every minute of every day, and life is life. The life is life, and most of the time things don't go our way. You know, you have to get out of bed at a certain time. I don't want to get out of bed then, but if I want my life to go on and I want to, go to my job, get my money, take care of my children, whatever, I need to get out of bed and I need to put on a smile, get a smile on my face and move on with my day. So, if your car has a flat tire, well, guess what? Okay, that's unpleasant, but you need to respond to it. So no sense in having a fit. Uh, I'll just tell you a quick story. One time I got pulled over by a police officer. I was speeding, and he said, you were speeding, like I didn't know. And and he said, why? And I told him, I said, it's a good stretch of road. Why get myself in a tizzy? I thought, you know what? He's right. I was speeding. He asked me why, and I said exactly why. It was a nice road. It was a good stretch of road. It was easy to speed on. And I didn't get a ticket that day. I got a warning. But what I did was, rather than saying, "Oh, how terrible it is to be pulled over, I'm going to get a ticket," I thought, you know what? Such is life, and getting a ticket is not the worst thing in the world. And that's really how I look at everything. Is this the worst thing in the world? No. I know someone who lost his leg because he tried to commit suicide. It didn't work, and he was in a coma. And every day they thought he was going to die, so they never turned him. Well, he lived, but he had such deep gangrene sores from never being turned in the bed that he lost his leg. Yet he gets up every day and helps others. So, you know what? Every day is, it could always be worse. It could always be worse. In fact, there's even a book by that name that my son brought home when he was in third grade. And it was an absolutely wonderful book. He came home from school one day and he said, Mom, we read this wonderful book at school today. I said, oh my goodness, what is it? He goes, it could always be worse. And he told me the whole story. And it's exactly what it is. It could always be worse. So you know what? Be thankful for what you have and move on. And so it took me a while to get that attitude though, because I used to be a big baby and be upset about everything. But I'm learning more and more, and the more people I meet, and many people really are suffering, and they have pain that we have no idea about. I met a man last week. He lost his oldest son to a motorcycle accident, and he was absolutely devastated, and he still had two other children that he had to take care of, and yes, it could always be worse. So, you know what? Keep that always in the back of your mind. So when the baby spills the milk, or, the child doesn't want to be potty trained, or they have a fit at the store, or your mom disagrees with you, hey, it could always be worse. Thank goodness you have your health or whatever.
Thank you for sharing that. What was it like for you as you were growing up? Like, were you around people who were teaching you how to have an optimistic mindset, or is that something you had to learn later on in life on your own? What can you take us through the journey of what it was like for you growing up? Because I feel like I can relate with your story a little bit right now of learning to find the positive in everything because I wasn't always like that myself. You know, you just mentioned that you used to be a big baby and like about a lot of different situations. Why is this happening to me? Why this? Why that? And I was like that once upon a time too. But I want to know kind of like what was it like for you? Because if you were like that, I was like that, then how many other people need to hear it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, good question. I was an unwanted child. My mother had two. They already had two other children. My dad was a terrible alcoholic and a gambler, but I can't really blame my dad. My dad was a prisoner of war of the Germans in World War II for 2 years. So you can imagine he came back different and with a lot of problems. But anyway, so the children were born after my dad came back from the war. So I had a brother who was 7 and a brother who was about 2 when I was born. And my father, there was no money, and I wasn't unwanted because my mother wasn't a loving woman. I was unwanted because she was so stressed. How am I going to feed this one? I have two others. How am I going to feed this one? So I was a very insecurely attached baby, and I was afraid of the world. And I say to this day, my mother loved my older brother better. It's kind of a joke. In fact, she'll love both of my brothers better, but we can talk about that later too. So I always held that. I always had that chip on my shoulder. And it's really interesting, Anita, how many parents tell me it doesn't matter how old their children are. If they have more than one child, they'll hear that. Well, you love my sister better. In fact, I was talking with a
Mm.
friend on the treadmill. She's 70, her daughter's 50, and her daughter was whining. You always do this for my sister. You did that for my sister. You love my sister better. And my friend said,
Mm.
sweetheart, I love you all the same, but you're different people. I'm not a robot. I can't love you the same. I respond to different things to each of you, but each of you interpret that as me somehow loving the other one more, which is not what it is at all. But see, we love to have that victim. We all love to be a victim because it gives us excuses to not do what we need to do. So all my life it was always, mom loved my brother better, and that was always my excuse for not doing what I needed to do to excel in my life. But anyway, yes, it really did take me years and years to figure out. I had crippling social anxiety. I was afraid of the world. When I was 16, I saw a therapist. We had to work on me saying hello to people. Hello.
Mm.
And I had a job at McDonald's, which I was very proud of, and I had had it for a year. Sometimes I look back and I wonder how did I manage anything? I was so afraid of the world and had so much. They call it social anxiety now, and so afraid to be wrong. I dropped a pencil at school one time. I think it was 8th grade. I was afraid to pick it up because I didn't want to be noticed. It was a terrible mistake to drop a
Wow.
pencil. How could I do that? Well, what kind of an idiot does that? I mean, just insanity. All of my thoughts were consumed with really, I was in total survival mode. And I don't know why. I was never abused. Nobody spanked or hit me. My mother wasn't a put down artist. She didn't, constantly berate me all the time. Oh, who knows why, how and why we get these things. And it took me a long time to overcome this stuff. But I knew, as I went through college, and I did get kicked out of 2 colleges. But you know what? I went back. I was crying to my mother. I remember, I think it was 18 or 19, crying to my mother. What am I gonna do? I can't where I can't go to college. Blah. My mother said, "You're gonna go right back to that college. You march right back to that college, and you ask them to let you in. You tell them you'll do what you need to do." And I did. I went right back to the college and said, "Please let me in." And they said, "Okay, you got 6 months of probation. Straighten up." Eh, all right. So that helped
Wow.
me to grow up. And guess what? Then I became a child psychology professor. I got an advanced degree. I taught high school special education for 16 years. So because my mother helped me, and because I thought to myself, well, no matter what, as my mom told me all the time, if it is to be, it's up to me. Other people can help you along the way, but you can't wait for that. You're going to have to make the moves and do what you need to do and risk rejection and get out there.
Yeah, that's so valuable. It's what you were saying is risk rejection and just get out there. I really like how you said that because we've all heard the phrase, we miss 100% of the shots that we don't take. And I think rejection can start at such a young age. Like, for example, you're in middle school and you think the boy or girl in your class is cute and you tell your friends and then they make fun of you because they don't think the same thing. And then immediately you start to get suppressed back. And it starts so early, but we don't even realize that. Or if, for example, if you like a TV show when you're growing up and your friends make fun of you for it, that's slowly starting to create that little fears of rejection or not being liked. So then it makes us be suppressed. And I always say, like, if it works out, then it's direction. But if it doesn't work out, then it's redirection. So there's no such thing as rejection because rejection is just putting you on the path that you're truly meant to be on. So I really love that you talked about that. And something that you do talk about is the three L's of parenting and life. Can you talk to us about that and how you've
Yes,
created that system?
yes. As I talk about in my book, yes, you can. Let's see if it'll come up. Yes, you can. It's so funny sometimes in video things become our reversed mirror image. But anyway, yes, you can raise happy, responsible children. One of the reasons I wrote that is because when our son was young, oh Lord, he was so spoiled because we did not know how to say no. And we had to
Mhm.
learn how to say no to him and he knew we were pushovers. So we had to learn to say no. And my first L is, love them enough to say no. We thought that loving parents said yes, but it turns out the more you don't let your child experience hardship, doing things themselves, I'm not saying danger or anything like that, but let your child do things themselves. So love your child enough to say no, and when you say no, think before it comes out of your mouth. Because if your child is used to you giving in, because what'll happen is they'll have these tantrums, and the tantrum will go on forever, and then the child has like a half-hour tantrum, and you go, oh, okay, here, just stop crying or whatever. Well, what have we just taught the child? Keep going, keep aggravating, keep annoying. One friend told me that she knew which parent was a pushover, so she would go to the one parent and they would say no, and she'd go to the other, and then she would just keep going back and forth until she got what she wanted because they would both become so exasperated and annoyed. But yes, so love your children and yourself enough to say no. People who don't say no to themselves become miserable adults. They become addicts, they become overweight, poor health, they don't exercise because they haven't learned no. No develops self discipline. If every time I wanted a donut I said yes, I'd be in big trouble. If every time I didn't want to go take a walk or go exercise, I said yes, yeah, let's just sit here. Let's scroll Facebook some more. Let's watch another movie. Let's go on YouTube. I would be in big trouble. And this happens with a lot of people as they get older. Their health deteriorates because we aren't as active. So we need to move. So I want to encourage anyone, get out there, even if it's just 5 minutes, take a walk, do something. But anyway, so love yourself and your children enough to say no. But before the no comes out of your mouth, make sure you mean it. Because if you don't really mean that no and you're going to change it to a yes, you have just set everybody up to be miserable. You set yourself up, you set the child up to push and push and push and push until you finally give in. And that's what happened to us. When I finally said no and meant it, oh, poor Anthony. That child, it fried his brain. We were at the mall one day, and he was pestering me for a toy. And they told me, they said, do not give him what he wants until he does what you want. So the way you're supposed to do it is, well, if you know if things go good at the store and I'm able to do what I want, maybe we can get you a toy. But you don't agree with that, and you can't ever do the if thing because that's bribery. But you can use it once in a while, and that is, well, if there's time and if you do this, this, and this, I might be able to get you a toy. We'll talk about it later. Well, of course, he pestered and pestered, so I got him the toy first. But I said, if you don't do what I told you to do, we're taking it back. He practically laughed in my face. So we're in the mall, and he's being a monster. He's being his usual self. and making it impossible for me to be able to do any shopping or doing anything. And so I said, okay, toy goes back. And this is the look on his face then. We go back to the toy store. He was in total shock. And I returned it. I got my money back. He went nuts. He just started screaming and kicking and oh my goodness. And I carry him out of the store and he's kicking. Luckily he was still small enough he couldn't get me, couldn't reach me. And I'm walking out of the mall and I'm saying, it's okay to be mad at mommy. It's not okay to hurt mommy. And these people were walking by, all these people, and these people are going, she should just hit him. He needs a spanking, blah, blah, blah. No, what he needed was a mother who, well, he got the mother he needed at that day. We learned a lot that day. Anyway, I get him out to the car, put him in the back seat. He's still going nuts. I thought he was going to kick my chair in, kick my seat in. And finally, after like 10 minutes, of course, he was exhausted. And I said, are you ready to go home? And he said, yes. He put his seatbelt on. We drove home. And we got home. I said, you know what? I think maybe you need to go to your room and rest, and we'll talk later. And that's exactly what happened. We talked later, but that was our turning point. And that was when I finally realized that when I say no, I must mean it. Now, it wasn't total smooth sailing after that, but he came around. It took us, it was about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, and he was a totally different child. It made our lives so much easier. So, love them enough and yourself to say no. So that was the first thing. It was a big turning point. And one day, I don't know, was it couple of weeks in or whatever, he turned to me. I said something to him, and he turned to me and he said, are you trying to use that psychology stuff on me again? And I said, yes, dear, yes, I am. And he said, well, it doesn't work. But he was totally wrong because it was working really well. Our whole relationship and family had really turned around so much. So I really encourage all of you, let your child do everything they can themselves. If the child says, where's the salt? Say, honey, it's right over there. Get up and get it. Have your child do as much possible themselves. Okay, so love them enough to say no. Lead by example. If your child is misbehaving, don't yell from across the room. That's the biggest thing. Parents yell from across the room, and then, of course, children don't listen. No, get up, get in front of the child. Don't have a fit. Get in front of the child and say, walk, walk. We don't run, we walk. Look the child in the eye. Hold their little hands. Smile. Okay, we walk now. Oh, sweetheart, we don't do that. Oh dear, you spilt the milk. Okay, come on. Let's clean it up. Maria Montessori, who created the Montessori method, she would tell children when the children would spill the milk and stuff, she would go, oh dear, the milk is spilled. We'll have to clean it up. But until then, let's play. Let's play in it. Is it thick? Is it thin? So, have more of an experience attitude about things. Don't look at everything as some terrible, oh no, the milk spilled. Oh no, that's terrible. Okay, let's clean it up. And from the age of 1, children can do chores. Give them a little broom. Let them sweep. Let them help you wash the dishes. Let them put the dishes in the sink. Everyone needs chores. Everyone needs to be a part of things. So lead by example. Get off your phone. Well, while you're sitting on your phone scrolling. Stop playing video games while you're watching TV. So you have to lead by example. And the third one, this one's really tough for parents. Let them fail. Oh, no. Okay, so your child comes home from school. Guess what? They're having a play at school. Oh, how exciting. Yes, I'm going to try for the lead. Oh, the lead. Oh, you might not get that. Why don't you try to be one of the trees? You could probably get that part. Well, then what do? We set our children up not to go after what they really want, but for what they think they can get. So here they are dating people who they really don't want, but who they think they can get, who want them. Going after jobs that really aren't what they really want, but that they think they can get. or they think they can do and don't stretch them. So they set themselves up for a life of mediocrity because we don't let our children experience failure enough. You see these videos of 3 and 4-year-old farm kids riding their little tractors, their little 4 mile an hour tractor with the hay in the back, going up to the horses, dropping the hay off, or feeding the chickens, or putting the chickens and the rabbits in their little trains and playing with them. And you see the farm children have all these chores. They have the chickens to feed. They have to go get the eggs. They have to learn all these things. All of this develops all their mental and their physical abilities. So give your child chores. And if they can't do it all themselves, help them. Would you like me to help you? And if your child is struggling, let them struggle. Let them struggle. You can ask, would you like me to help you? But let them struggle. Uh, because when we don't struggle, we don't grow. And we talked about rejection earlier, but let me tell you my rejection story. This is kind of recent. And it was a couple of years ago. I went to the mall. My husband died years ago. So a couple of years ago, I went to the mall. This really nice mall we have out here, and I noticed this handsome man. So I'm a single woman, so I noticed this very handsome man sitting outside of Nordstrom reading the paper. So I go into Nordstrom. I was in there about an hour. I come back out, and he's still sitting outside reading the paper, sitting at a table. And I thought, well, okay, there you go, Martha. Strike while the iron's hot. So I went up to him and I said, well, hello. And he kind of looked at me funny. And I said, are you waiting for your wife or your girlfriend? Because I'm not going to poach. I'm not a poacher. If he wasn't single, I was going to move on. And he looked at me really funny and he said, no. And I said, well, good. Move over. I'll sit down and we'll talk. And he said, what? I said, you're alone. I'm alone. Let's get to know each other. And he yelled, oh my God. He yelled at me, Anita. He said, I come to the mall to be alone.
Oh no.
Talk about rejection, right? Oh my goodness. And I looked at him for a second and I thought, okay, now what, Martha? What are you going to do now? So I smiled real big and I said, my bad. Have a nice day. And I walked off. And then as I walked off, I thought to myself, one down, you know, next. And so I told my son that story and he said, Mom, you probably dodged a bullet. That guy sounded like a big meanie and an unpleasant person. So probably you were lucky. Yeah, whatever. But it's just,
Yeah, that's so true. What were you feeling in that moment? Like, I think for a lot of times, like as a natural human response, embarrassment can feel like an emotion that comes up right away. But what were you feeling in that moment?
well, I really did say to myself, well, it's not the outcome, it's the behavior. Did I do the right thing?
Mm.
Yes, I approached him. I screwed up all my courage and I approached him. That determined my success. Whether he said yes or no wasn't even the point. The point was is that I screwed up my courage in front of people and I took the risk of being rejected in front of others. And it's exactly what happened to me. And guess what? I'm still alive. Nobody came up to me and said, loser. And even if they would have, I would have said, yeah, I lost that one, but there's 8 million more. The world's a big place. So yeah, I was really proud of myself. All right. I was like, all right, Martha, go for it. Yeah. You're getting to be a better and better saleswoman. You didn't get that one, but the average sale is 1 out of 10, 9 to go.
So incredible. Thank you for sharing those stories because like I kind of want to go back to the part of saying no. Because I think a lot of times like you were telling the story about a friend who was a pushover as a child and it's like if one parent said no, it goes to the other parent. And then if that parent said no, it would go back and forth. And I can honestly relate with that because that was totally me when I was growing up. My mom said no, go to my dad. My dad said no. And then I would try to like talk to them thinking they wouldn't talk to each other. And I'm like, oh, he's in this room, she's in that room. They're not going to talk to each other. So I'll go ask. But the reality is they're always communicating. But we just don't realize that as kids. And we just keep pushing because our parents are not saying no to us. And we're not like they're saying no, but we're not responding well to it. So I think that's there's a lot of valuable information in that is just really being firm and saying, sticking to what you're saying because yeah, it's easier to say yes than it is to say no, but if it's easy, you're not learning anything. If you're not saying no, you're not learning anything. So I really appreciate that. And it's like it really does show that like if you don't say no, then you're really lacking that self-respect on your end, not just the other person's end. I went through a phase of I didn't know how to say no in my adult life. You know, I didn't know how to say no in relationships, whether it was personal, career, or friends. And I would always be the yes person. I would be yes to this, yes to that, yes, I'll work extra hours. And it literally burnt me out so bad to the point where I had to leave all of those relationships because I was so burnt out. Have you faced burnout from relationships or not having that self-respect for yourself by putting boundaries and saying no?
Oh yeah, it's that people pleasing, and we have to grow out of that. I think a lot of that is taught in
Mhm,
school because we're taught at school
mhm.
we better please the teacher, we better you know do this and do that. So we're stuck in people pleasing. But then as we grow, we start to realize, just like you said, Anita, I can't say yes to everything. I don't have that much time, and so we have to
Yeah,
start prioritizing ourselves. And and I talk about a lot of this in the book about um, say being able to say no, and also how you can say no and still raise the child's self-esteem, help the child with their self-esteem. But also, you talked about going between the two parents. Parents don't always have to be on the same page, but don't disagree in front of the children. If it's a big thing, talk about it not in front of the children, and make your deals then. But also, you also have to let each parent be their own person. So okay, mom's a pushover and dad's not. But when mom and dad or the people that raise the children discuss it and say, okay, these are the big things. No phones at the dinner table. At the dinner table, we do not criticize. We only talk about good things. If we have to chastise a child about something, we'll have that conversation another time. But when we're sharing a meal, it's good times and it's good stories and it's cool stuff that makes us all bond. So you want to have those conversations with your spouse, but you have to let your spouse be your spouse. Uh, Okay, I got to tell you this story. I have a friend, he's a grandpa, so he had his grandson on his little motorcycle. The grandson looked to be about 3, but his motorcycle goes like 8 or 10, 12 miles an hour. So the kid's got his helmet on, and they're on this big wide field, and the kid's coming around the field, and there's dad and grandpa standing there. He had the video of it. And the kid comes back around, and grandpa says, "Hey, you want to go faster?" Said, "No mother ever." That's what dads and grandpas do. You want to go faster? The
absolutely.
kid's like, yeah, yeah, grandpa, yeah. And he turned up the throttle. He goes, okay, let's turn up this throttle. And, boom. And all the women commented, oh my goodness, that's dangerous, because that's how we are. How could you do that? And then, dad and grandpa, well, such is life. If he goes too fast, it'll fall over. He'll hit something. He's wearing a helmet, So yeah, we have to let moms be moms and dads be dads. How many moms throw the kid up in the air and catch him? But dads do it all
No,
the time because dads have that upper body strength, you know. So and also children are pretty flexible, so they can have a few tumbles and falls. Oh, and while we're talking about this, if you have any sharp furniture at your house and your child's a little toddler or walker, cover those sharp corners on all those tables with those nice soft table covers so the child doesn't get poked in the eye or whatever as they're running around. Also, if you have an animal, you want to make sure if you have any sharp cornered furniture that it's protected, even if you have to cover it up with um, cotton balls or whatever, tape over it. Just make sure your children are safe, your children and your pets are safe. Okay, so we did
yeah, absolutely.
3 L's. So love them enough to say no. And boy, that's really a hard one because lead by example. Boy, that's difficult too. Don't smoke. Don't drink. Oh gosh, we parents, we're funny. And let them fail. So, let them. Oh, and now I'll tell you another story. I was
Sure.
62 years old. I took piano lessons for the first time in my life. And my piano teacher was an elementary school music teacher. So it was around November, and I was practicing all the time. And she said, "You know, Martha, we're going to have our Christmas recital. I want you to play in it. It's for children, and parents and grandparents are going to be there, you know." And I thought, okay, why not? Why not? So I did. I played in it. I came after the 5-year old, who was very good, and before the 10-year old, who wrote his own music. The kid was phenomenal. Anyway, so I'm at this recital that's nothing but parents and grandparents. And after the whole thing was over, all these people were coming up to me. "Oh my goodness, you've inspired me. Oh, I thought I was too old. Oh, I've always wanted to take flower arranging. I've always wanted to learn the banjo or whatever. I'm going to take those lessons now because you inspired me. You showed me you're never too old." I was like, whoa, that was my purpose there. That was my purpose there. Because you know what? As long as you're alive, you're never too old. Whatever age you are is the right age. I know a man, he's 90. He started writing when he was 80. He's written 5 books, written and published 5 books. He's 90. So whatever age you are, you need to do things and get out and live your life. Live your life. I used to show my students, in my child psychology class, we had a video about people who had chronic pain. And one of the things about it was they stopped living basically because they'd raise their arms so high it would hurt, or when they walked it was uncomfortable, they would hurt. And they were in this research, and the doctor said, if you don't push yourself, you're going to be a vegetable. You're going to lose
Hmm.
the mobility you have. You're going to make life worse for yourself. You have got to push yourself. You've got to say no to yourself. I want to sit on my butt. I don't want to experience the pain or the discomfort of getting up or raising my arm. No, you've got to say no to yourself and say, no, up I go, up I go. So that's what they did. They did this research, and they had these people push themselves. Not gigantic, not to hurt themselves, but they had to push through the pain sometimes and force their arms up a little higher, whatever their difficulty was. And at the end of the research, the people had so much better lives. They were more active, they had more social lives, they were enjoying life better because nothing's worse than ill health and pain. But if we cause our ill health by sitting and doing nothing, the big scandal now is this Ozempic thing. Everybody
Hmm.
wanted to take those Ozempic shots. Well, now there's a $2 billion lawsuit. People have totally destroyed their health and their lives because of it. Because why? Because they wouldn't say no to themselves. "Oh, here, I'm going to take the easy way. I'll take this shot or this pill or whatever." And I see that at the treatment center. A lot of people at the treatment center, they want to take the shots. There's this thing called, I don't know what it's called, but you get this shot, and it supposedly makes you allergic to alcohol. It makes you really sick if you drink. Well, um, there's a reason we drink. There's a reason we overeat. And taking pills and drugs and whatever else doesn't address those reasons. So we need to learn our reasons. And sometimes we just need to, you know what? I don't need to know the reason. I need to get up out of this bed. Here's a reason. I want to eat. I need to make money. So sometimes it's not oh, why do I always self-sabotage? And why don't you just get up and get something done? And then maybe 5 minutes. If you really don't want to do something, all right, set the timer 5 minutes. I'll walk for 5 minutes. I'll clean the house for 5 minutes. I read the Bible in 10 minutes a day. If I wanted to read more, I would, but I never stopped before 10 minutes.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really, there's a lot of valuable information in there. But I kind of want to go back to when you were saying when you started taking music lessons, because it really doesn't matter what age you are, as long as you have a dream and you have some kind of drive in you, then it's in you for a reason. So you motivated and inspired so many different people. And if you said no because of that fear of rejection or the fear of getting made fun of, then you would have never helped all those other parents in that crowd. So I love that because it really is true. As long as we get up in the morning we still have purpose in us and we still have that dream inside of us. So I think that's really amazing, especially with your friend that wrote a book. He's at 80 years old and now he's written 5 books. Like, you know how many people he's probably just inspired along the way and will continue to forever now. And that's what I believe is the point of life is helping others and making an impact in other people's lives. And just really understanding that as long as you get up every single day, you still have purpose in you. And that's so beautiful.
And I have a neighbor. His mother is she has diabetes, and
Mhm.
I guess Tom is maybe, I don't know, 50 or 60. His mother's probably, I think he's maybe 50. His mother's 70, and his mother just doesn't want to move. She doesn't want to exercise, and the doctor said if you don't start moving, your circulation is so bad, I'm going to wind up having to cut off your toes, because you're starting to get really bad circulation. But she doesn't want to move. And I remember I was walking the dog one day. I see Tom when I walk the dog going down the road sometimes, and he stopped to talk to me and he told me this story. And he said, the doctor said to my mom, if she doesn't start moving, she's going to start losing body parts. He'll have no choice. Um, and I said, well, doesn't that motivate your mom? He said, no. No, I told my mom I have to go run this errand, but when I come back, we are going to walk to the mailbox and back, which is 2 minutes, to the end of their driveway and back. Um, so he's really being more proactive. But I don't know how do we get to that place where we don't care about our health. I talked to a friend yesterday who drank so much when he was younger, I was talking to he and his wife. He got the DT so bad they put him in the hospital and had to put him in a coma. His delirium tremens from drinking, he said he was drinking a fifth a day, were so bad they had to put him in a coma. I remember because they were talking, I was at an AA meeting and they were talking about how I was on a ventilator. I said, what, for the DTs on a ventilator? They said, yes, they had to put him in a coma. His body was so bad off. And is that really what we want? Do we want to ruin our health like that? So, yeah, we have to learn to say no to ourselves and we have to learn to get the help we need. And this all, it really does all start, a lot of it stems from parenting. And then a lot of it stems from us waking up and saying, if it is to be, it's up to me, just like my mother said. And she said to me, my health depends on who? It doesn't depend on a shot or a pill. It depends on me doing what I need to do. Do I really need to eat those cookies and donuts? Do I really, No, I need to get up. I need to walk. Let's get the dog. Let's go for a walk. It depends. Everything depends on me. And I need to start looking at things that way, not to overwhelm myself, but to say, you know what? Who do I need to talk to learn so that I can do this right? Who can help me? Do I need to see a fitness trainer? My trainer, he would tell me that I worked harder than a lot of his younger patients. I worked really hard. When I used to go to the gym every day, I was on the gym board for being the person who was at the gym every single day. I did that for like a year. And we have to make decisions in our life. What's important? Health is important. Health is wealth. Health is wealth. And relationships are wealth. So, yes, we need to have boundaries. We can't be people pleasers. Nobody respects us when we do that. We have to have healthy boundaries and we have to be good examples. If I'm always saying yes to people, is that a good example? No, that's not being a good example for our children.
That's so valuable. I love all of that. Like, Martha, you're so inspiring and you continue to. I hope that you continue to keep improving, like working on yourself and inspiring people because you are such an inspiration just to me from this last 40 minutes. So I'm super thankful. But I have one final question for you before we wrap things up. What does it mean for you to be nourished inside out?
Oh my goodness, what a good question. Well, you know what? I was just looking at, okay, there's this thing. What's a good life? What is a good life? I lead a purposeful and meaningful life. That's number one for me. Because I used to go to the jail every week. Now I go to the treatment center every week, but I went to the jail every week for 4 years to help the addicts and the alcoholics, to talk to them. And I remember one lady was 33, and she said, I'm tired of coming to jail. I'm ready to grow up. That was very motivating to me because I thought that, what, I had a piece of that. I had one woman in the jail that she was a meth addict, and she came to jail pregnant. Now, when she found out she was pregnant, she stopped doing meth. When she got out of jail, she had quit the drugs, and she lost her mother and her father within a month. I think the mother died when she was 9 months pregnant. The dad died right after she had the baby. She still did not go back to drugs. She has been, I don't know, it's been 2 or 3 years now. Her baby is 18 months old. She married the father. They have a wonderful life together, and they're going to have a second child. So she had to say to herself, you know what? I lead a purposeful and meaningful life, and she's a fabulous mother. So my relationships are supportive and rewarding. So find people who support and reward and help you, and they make your life better, not worse. So look for people. Tony Robbins says it all the time. Look for somebody who does what you want to learn. Let them teach you. I am engaged and interested in my daily activities. Yes, not only do I have the one book that I promote, Yes, You Can Raise Happy, Responsible Children, but I'm also working on my second book, which is for teachers. So, yes, I actively contribute to the happiness and well being of others. That's a big one. You know what? When I'm in a bad mood, I keep my big mouth shut. I'm a big baby. I get upset about everything. Oh, the computer's slow. Why is the computer so slow? It's not fair. It's not fair. Well, I go up in my room, I have my little fit and go, all right, now put on a smile and go downstairs and talk with people and don't mention it. You know, when something happens, I don't. I used to think if I was having a bad day, everybody had to be miserable. Well, no, that is not a good life. If you're having a bad day, keep it to yourself or find the friend that you can talk to. Do not give it to your family. There's that old cartoon where the boss would yell at the worker would come home and yell at his wife, the wife would yell at the kid, and the kid would kick the dog. That's why don't share your misery. One man, he brought a friend home to dinner after work, and he stopped at a tree and he touched the leaves. He said something, and then he started to go into the house. And the man said, "What did you just do there?" He said, "I left my troubles." I'm going to start to cry. I left my troubles at the tree. My family does not need that. When I go in the house, that's our family time, and they do not need my troubles. That's being purposeful and useful for others. I actively contribute to the happiness and well being of others.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Martha. Like, it's been such a blessing to have you on today. Can you please tell us where can people find you? Where can they support you and get your book?
Thanks, Anita, and you're an absolutely wonderful interviewer. You're an excellent listener. The book is at Amazon, and we'll put it in the show notes below. Yes, you can raise happy, responsible
Yes.
children. I also have a website, marthaburich.com. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all those places. Oh my goodness, I'm everywhere. But yeah, you can go to my website, marthaburich.com, or Facebook or Instagram. I try to post something at least a couple of times a week, a little video about what to do with those kids.
Saying I'll have everything linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch. Thank you for joining us today, Martha.
Thank you, Anita. It was great, great fun.